you, Susan. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. Again, my name is Howard Greenfield. I'm president of Go Associates. I'm a digital product industry consultant, and I also write for various publications on emerging technology. I'll be moderating today's session. We have a great topic called the industry perspective. Where is the industry going and what's next? So it's broad, but we have a terrific set of panelists to cover this topic from a great range of companies. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves further in just a minute, but I'd like to first just mention that we have John Lockney, product manager from Nokia. Sitting next to him is Vach Kompella, who's senior director of mobile gateways at Alcatel-Lucent. And next to him is Ben Riga, senior technical evangelist here at Microsoft. And on the end there we have Satya Malya, who is director of mobile at Orange, which is formerly France Telecom. This discussion is going to be a chance to look ahead at what's coming from people that are directly in touch with the developments. So I think it'll be very exciting in that regard. We're going to look at how the technology and the business model support the inevitable growth and change that's coming as a result of this so-called mobile tsunami. So I know we've had a lot of information and ideas and facts thrown across today. I'd like to just mention a couple of factoids that I think are very relevant in terms of what's happening with the subscribers. Right now there's nearly 5 billion global mobile subscribers, and that number is going to increase to about 7.5 billion by 2015, according to Portio Research. Mobile apps, which was not much of a business a couple of years ago, has risen to $6.6 billion in revenues in the last couple of years. It's expected to reach 23 billion, to sort of quadruple by 2015. And the worldwide revenue for worldwide mobile services tops $1.1 trillion at the end of this year, at the end of this month. So that's big business and it's big growth. And with that in mind, before we begin our discussion, I'd like to further introduce you to this group that's pioneering a lot of this new sector. And I'll turn it over to them, and maybe starting, John, with yourself, if you could begin the introductions.
Okay, I'm John Lockney. I work at Nokia. We're just over in Mountain View. Actually, we're relocating in Sunnyvale today. I work as product manager responsible for Vigo products for North America, which are upcoming. And prior to that, I've been at Nokia Research Center for about 10 or more years when I was doing early standardization in 3G, LTE, and IETF protocols, internet protocols.
Hi, my name is Vach Kompella. I work at Alcatel-Lucent. I run the mobile gateways team there, and prior to that, I worked on the routers. And my whole interest in mobile gateways is because everything's shifting to IP, and so I think it's a really exciting area to be in.
My name is Ben Riga. I'm a technical evangelist at Microsoft. I'm the developer and platform evangelism group, primarily focused on Windows Phone. For the past year, I've been working on nothing but getting the top apps from various partners onto the phone before we launched. Before that, I was on Windows Azure, so working on the stuff that hopefully all of you guys are interested in, which is software, services, and also partnerships.
Hi, my name is Satya Malya. I manage the strategic initiatives and partnerships at Orange. Orange is a mobile operator. Actually, it's a fixed and mobile operator in Europe. We have about 135 million subscribers, mobile subscribers, spread over 30 to 35 countries.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to start by taking a little bit of a tip from Kevin Fruzzi this morning from Excel, who asked the audience what you're all thinking. And we're not going to answer them right now, but if we could just get one or two questions from people to see what's on everybody's mind, we thought that'd be kind of interesting. Does somebody want to pose a question? Get started? Yeah.
My question is HTML5 is what browser is going to be the ubiquitous application platform for mobile? How it's going to
So how is HTML5 going to affect the,
Browsing general.
thank you. Sorry.
What don't people already know about how what's called the spectrum crunch is shaping up?
Hi, I'd like to know more about when you see mobile OS virtualization coming around and what it might do to some of your activities.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going to cap it, maybe one more quick one.
Now that we see a CEO from Microsoft at Nokia, will we be seeing an OS from Microsoft soon?
Okay. That's enough for now. Thank you very much. We just kind of wanted to get a notion of what's out there. We realize we're a little bit firewalled in our discussions. It's helpful. We'll come back to actual answers on those shortly. I wanted to open this up by first asking about what are the expected new features and disruptions that's going to occur in advances in several areas. One of them is in more robust connectivity, in higher bandwidth, lower latency, and cloud computing. But before talking about what those new features are, the first question really is, what are the hurdles? So I'm going to ask whoever wants to start to address what really are going to be the key initial obstacles in the future regarding these areas of connectivity, bandwidth, latency, and cloud computing. So, gentlemen, whoever wants to pick that up first, Satya?
Well, first I was looking at the title, the mobile internet tsunami, right? And Orange basically has about half of our subscribers, about 60 million in emerging countries, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. And data is not there yet, right? So, but there's definitely a mobile tsunami happening in Africa, Asia, Middle East. But in terms of the data crunch itself, right? I mean, one of the key things we are seeing is basically an explosion of data usage, and all of you have already heard about it. We used to see about an average of 10 megabyte, 20 megabyte per month usage, and recently I think it was the Google guys who mentioned on Android they are seeing an average consumption of 440 megabyte per month, right? So obviously for us it's all about the huge amount of data that is going across the network. How do we actually manage it? And some of the strategies Susan was talking about, these are things that we are considering. We have used whatever tools we have in terms of managing the network and also providing alternatives. So we use Wi-Fi as an offload as a concept. We basically have a product called Unique, which is basically unlicensed mobile access. It's almost like a residential gateway, and as soon as you are at home, basically the traffic switches to your DSL. And we are the DSL providers in many of these countries where we cover mobile services. So these are things that we do in the internet. But I think one of the questions was all about spectrum, right? And spectrum crunch is really a key thing. Right? We have our friends from Alcatel-Lucent and the rest of the infrastructure vendors who are trying to squeeze as much bytes out of hertz of spectrum. But we have reached a point where basically there's not enough spectrum. And so I can see some movements among the regulators to actually free up some spectrum, and you see some of the results, right? But it's all about connection. How many connections are coming in? We have 4 billion users using mobile internet, and we are going to see a huge amount of devices joining the fray. How do you actually squeeze the most out of the network?
Right. So, spectrum's what were the other obstacles that we're seeing right now? Vash, do you want to jump in?
So, so I think from a developer perspective, if you're working on whether it's a startup or enterprise, it's scale. How fast can you build that application when you have, when you don't know how many end users are going to hit your app or hit your site. So being able to scale quickly, being able to build applications that can deploy quickly and then scale when you need them to scale. So cloud computing is probably the answer to that. And there's lots of other things you can think about as well.
Right. Steven?
So one of the really interesting things that we've discovered through some analytical tools that we have with Alcatel-Lucent, partnering with some of the large providers here in the US, is that mobile networks are designed as phone networks. They're not designed as data networks. And there's a significant difference in what you expect out of a data network from a phone network. And you have a conversation, you expect a 2, 3, 5 minute long continuous conversation when you're talking on the phone. When you have an interaction with a web server, it's not that kind of interaction anymore. And a lot of the development of applications, say on the iPhone, the developers have thought of the phone network as if it were a wireline network, not a mobile network. And so they're very inefficient in terms of usage of spectrum, usage of radio channels, and so on. There's got to be some kind of control analysis and things like that in order to make these applications work the same way they do on the wired world. And you know, we had a sort of a shift in the wired world when we went from 9600 baud to DSL. When we went to broadband, lots of things changed, and we're going to have that same shift on the wireless network. But unfortunately, I think the wired world has been spoiled, and so they're going to expect that transition from a phone network to a data network that behaves like your wireline world almost instantaneously. And so just putting more bandwidth is not going to be the answer. I think we're going to come up with lots of new architectures for the wireless network. Things that Satya was talking about, picocells, femtocells, Wi-Fi offload, all these things are initial probes into what that new architecture is going to be. But it's going to be something significantly different, I think, from what we have right now.
So challenges from my point are spectrum and bandwidth, and I'm going to put those two together because they're somehow linked, and battery life. I think those are some of the bigger constraints that we have. Just to follow up with what Dash said, a lot of the mobile networks and radio protocols were designed for phone calls and 3G. And when you move to IP connected applications, which are sort of always online, it's a completely different profile than what the radio protocols and the radio networks were designed for. LTE is a step towards doing something that is much more internet friendly, but I think at the same time, if you look at right now what's going on, just read any tech blog, most of the mobile operators are not exactly happy that there's so much data usage because they're not able to keep up. It's not just about, it's the air interface, it's the backhaul, it's everything. It's also, people are complaining about battery life. You've given me a phone with all of these things, but it lasts 6 hours. So it's somewhat of a complicated issue because it's all around. I think one path to success is going forward, especially in terms of application and services, will not be high bandwidth applications, but applications which are really intelligent and send just the amount of data that is needed so that then you're preserving battery life, preserving spectrum, but still providing utility. So I think that's an area to be looking at and investing more in developing technology around that.
Terrific. Thanks, John. I just realized there's so many great questions out here and probably more to come that maybe it'd be good to sort of shortcut a little bit on the questions I had lined up. Jump to one more before we go to the audience because I think we go round and round on the ones that already were suggested. The question I wanted to ask you guys, we talked about was the prediction question around looking out 18 months ahead. What is your favorite single prediction of what's going to be an unexpected or exciting development in mobile? And we'll just start with Satya if you want to give it a shot.
I saw so many of them in Susan's presentation. I'm just going to pick a couple. I look at Cloud 4, right? I mean, basically, we almost invent a class of phone almost every 18 months, right? I mean, you have smartphone, superphone, cloud phone. But this is what is happening: is that cloud services is really going to take off, right? And there are things that are happening from a device perspective. There's a lot of functionality that's being added, but the way we say it is that as the network actually improves, as there is